Hey friends, it is time for the final soup in my Dollar Tree soup season series, and it is one of my favorites. Never mind the fact that I have like 10 favorites, but that's beside the point. This one's also really great because it is especially budget friendly. It is a black bean soup. Like many bean soups, it is super versatile and super delicious. My super quick Dollar Tree disclaimer: I don't do meals from the Dollar Tree because it's necessarily the cheapest or best place to get groceries. I do it because for a lot of people, shopping at non-traditional places like the Dollar Tree or Dollar General or other similar stores is a necessity. And if you're unfamiliar with Dollar Tree, it is not a traditional grocery store. It's basically a couple aisles of non-perishable foods, and some stores have a small refrigerator and freezer section that has mostly frozen processed foods. So let's go ahead and get started on this soup. To make my black bean soup, before I even worry about getting my other ingredients out, I'm going to start cooking my beans. I'm going to be making them in my pressure cooker. However, if I was not making them in the pressure cooker, I would have started these last night and let them soak in some water overnight. I'm going to fill my 1 cup measuring cup here, nice and full. I'll make that amount of beans. That should be equivalent to around 2 cans of beans that you would buy. And first thing I'll do is rinse these and make sure there are no rocks or any like foreign things that shouldn't be in there. Also, a lot of times beans have dirt in them, so it's a good idea to rinse them anyway. Now my beans are rinsed and sorted. I didn't find any rocks. I did find some beans that just look like they're either, I don't know, like they were either a little bit underdeveloped or I don't know, they just look a little different. So I decided to pull those out. If I were cooking these on my stovetop after soaking them, I would put them in a pot of water and let them cook for like an hour or 2 until they got tender. The pressure cooker is going to be a lot faster. I'll leave a link in the video or in my description for an Instant Pot. However, I recommend keeping an eye out for them in thrift stores, buy nothing groups, Facebook Marketplace. I know my Facebook Marketplace is like flooded with cheap Instant Pots because like the market is saturated with them. So there's tons out there. I'm adding 3 cups of water. I usually cook my beans at a 1 cup of beans to 3 cup of water ratio. I'll pop the top on here. I'll hit my bean button here. It goes right to 35 minutes, and that is what I'm going to cook it at. The actual cook time with the Instant Pot coming to pressure, and then the timer starts, and then I let the pressure naturally release for 15 or 20 minutes or so. So the actual cook time is more like an hour, but in the world of cooking dried beans, that is incredibly fast. So I will be back when they are done. I've got the rest of my black bean soup ingredients here. I'll be making cornbread to go with the soup, so that is why I have the Jiffy corn muffin mix. I also have here some cream corn, some salsa. I was hoping they were gonna have the big jars of paste salsa, but they were short on salsa. They just had a few of these jars right here, but so I'm still happy to have some. Had they not had salsa, there would have been a few other alternatives, rotel, or even just canned tomatoes, and they also carry pickled jalapenos, so I could kind of make my own little rotel type mixture. A can of carrots, my jarred minced garlic, the rest of those frozen onions and peppers, chicken bouillon, and then the rest of my cheese. I've got a bit of oil heating up in my pot. I'm going to dump the rest of the onions and peppers straight in. I'm not going to worry about chopping them up because I ultimately plan to blend the soup. If you were to have the soup and you were not planning to blend it, it would be entirely up to your personal preference on whether you want to keep these in strips or chop them down into a smaller size. These will take a couple minutes to get hot, let go of that excess water, for that water to evaporate, and then for them to finally start sauteing. They really did not give me much in the way of onions in that mix. I don't think I've ever had so few onions. Like I said, normally it's kind of pepper heavy. And peppers are typically the more expensive veggie, especially peppers that aren't green peppers, whereas onions tend to be very cheap to produce. So I'm incredibly surprised that this is all the onion I had left in that bag. Like, that's wild to me. It's been about 90 seconds and this is all hot now, and you can see it is at the very wet stage. And now, just a very short time later, you can see that all of that excess liquid has evaporated, and these are sauteing pretty much normally. I opened and drained my carrots, and I'll add those as well. Same deal where I am not worried about cutting those up. And if you wanted to, you could just break them up right in the bottom of the pot. I'm chopping them up a bit just so that way they're easy to stir in with all my peppers here. Now that my carrots are all nice and hot, I'm making a little spot where I'm going to add my garlic, adding a nice big dollop of it. It's nowhere near as potent as fresh garlic, but I love garlic, so I might be tempted to add that much fresh garlic anyway to a soup. I'm gonna let this cook until it gets nice and toasty and fragrant. Garlic is one of my favorite flavors. I know not everyone loves the jarred stuff. Some people are actually very strongly against it, but I will just choose to enjoy it in its many different forms however I can, whatever I have access to. My garlic has been cooking in the middle here for a couple minutes. Usually what I do is I mostly keep it around the center with everything pushed up to the sides. And then once it starts getting toasty, I'll mix everything all together and I'll let it cook all together for a minute. The next ingredient I'll be adding is my salsa. Before I do that, I'll mix a little bit of seasonings in here. I'm doing black pepper and garlic powder. I know I've got that minced garlic, but for me, garlic powder and minced garlic and fresh garlic all have slightly different flavors. And so I like to add more than one type of garlic sometimes. I'm also adding in some of the Cajun style Badia seasoning that I get from Dollar Tree. Nice little bit of that. And I'll just stir that all together for a minute. I'm a huge fan of cooking seasonings in with whatever you're sauteing before you add your liquid ingredients. The seasonings being in contact with the pan makes them really fragrant, really brings out their aromas. I get my salsa open. Actually had a slight disaster at the Dollar Tree when I got this. The cashier missed the bag and dropped it on the floor and it shattered everywhere. I had to run back and grab another one. She was apologizing and I'm like, this is way more inconvenient for you than for me. Like, it's not a big deal for me to grab another jar. Like, you're the one, you gotta clean up glass and salsa all over the floor. Like, don't apologize to me. Like, I'm sorry you have to clean that up. But so I'll get this added. It was funny though, because when it fell, we both agreed it smelled really good. She was like, yeah, this makes me want some chips and salsa. I'm just using the moisture from the salsa to deglaze the bottom of the pan. You probably noticed that a lot of stuff was starting to stick to it. So we're just getting all of that off and integrating it in with our ingredients. It's lots of good flavor. My beans have been done for a little while. That is the beauty of the Instant Pot. It keeps them hot and ready to go until I'm ready to use them. So I'm gonna get these out of here and get them added to my soup. There are my beans as well. I mentioned that I was aiming for the equivalent of around like 2 cups of canned beans. And I also have 4 cups of water. I'm also adding bouillon equivalent to the water that I added in. I'll let those get hot and dissolve in there. I showed this box when I was gathering my ingredients, but I actually used these ones that are in my cabinet. They are also from the Dollar Tree, but they're a little bit older, so I got these used up. These ones are 1 cube for 2 cups of broth. These ones are 1 cube for 1 cup of broth. It's funny, unwrapping these feels like unwrapping little presents. I also added in just a little touch of water to get the last of that salsa out before I throw this in the recycling bin. I'll splash just a little splash of soy sauce in there to up the umami flavor. And this will start coming up to a boil momentarily. What I'm gonna do is put a lid on it and let it simmer for probably 20 to 30 minutes. What that's gonna do is just give the soup some time to develop flavor in that broth. I'm getting ready to mix up my cornbread to go in the oven. First thing I'm gonna do is grate the rest of my cheese. I've probably got, what, about 2.5 of the 8 ounces left maybe? The hardest part for me when doing these videos is not snacking on a ridiculous amount of the cheese. Making sure that I save it for the meal it's actually intended for. Though if I'm being honest, these little chunky bits at the end that are hard to grate, they do become my snack. And I'll be using some of this to top the soup with, and then some of it for my muffin mix. There's probably plenty to top 3 bowls of soup with. So normally you would make this Jiffy corn muffin mix with milk and egg, And I did actually have milk for my other soups, but I used it all, so I'm out of milk. That's okay. It's obviously gonna come out a little bit different than when it's made with egg and milk, but I have made it without before and it still turned out really great. So I've got my oven preheating to 400, adding the mix to a bowl, adding in that cheese that I just grated, put the rest of this aside. I wanna add a little bit of pepper, as well as some of that ultimate garlic seasoning that I picked up when I got all these ingredients. And then I have my can of creamed corn. Creamed corn is an ingredient that I used to be kind of grossed out by, but it's really been growing on me. I don't know if I could just heat it up here and eat it and enjoy it or not. Yeah, I probably could, honestly. And then I'll get this all stirred together real quick. Typically, the creamed corn provides enough moisture that I don't need to add any other liquid. That mixed up pretty quick and easily, and I think it makes a pretty nice consistency batter. I really like cooking cornbread in this brownie pan that I have. It should be pretty non-stick, but I just wiped out the little cups with a little bit of oil just to be safe. So I'm just gonna fill these up real quick and then I'll toss them in the oven. It's funny, Andrew walked up behind me and he does not recognize what this was. The last time I made these corn muffins in a video, he called it prison slop. This time around, he called it cheddar sludge. I do appreciate, though, that even if he makes some funny, you know, kind of accurate looking names, he's still always excited to eat it. I know he has no doubt that it's going to be good. See how long these actually end up taking to cook. Like I said, I have my oven set to 400 degrees. I'm thinking like 12 to 14 minutes. I'll put them in for 12 and then I'll start checking on them. I am lifting this up a couple times in the cooking process, by the way, just to give it a real quick stir. My soup's been cooking for about 25 minutes. I just took the lid off, gave it a stir, gave it a taste. It is fantastic. I've got just a few more minutes left on my cornbread. So from here, you've got a couple different options. You can serve the soup exactly like this. Lots of pieces of vegetables and whole beans and really delicious broth. You can use something like one of these mashers to mash it just a little bit or to mash it a whole lot. It's all really a matter of like, what texture do you want in your soup? What degree of whole pieces versus mashed pieces do you want? Not doing anything will keep this broth that's a lot thinner, a lot more liquidy. Starting to mash it will make it thicker. And then the other option, my cornbread just beeped. I put it in for another 2 minutes. It is almost done now. But the other option you have is if you have something like an immersion blender, you can blend it up as smooth as you want, or you can blend it a little bit, keep it kind of chunky as well. Other options are to remove some of the soup and blend that really smooth in either the attachment that comes with one of these, a little blending cup, or if you've got like a little mini blender or a full-size blender. Basically, you can blend some up and put it back in, so that'll make your soup a little more creamy, a little more thick. And then you can also blend all the soup in a more traditional style blender. Just use caution. Some blenders are designed with like a steam vent, so that way they can safely blend hot liquids. Other ones will explode on you because the steam really quickly builds pressure. So just be careful if you go the traditional blender route. But give me just a minute here. I would like mine pretty smooth. I've got my cornbread out of the oven and I did blend mine super smooth. I love a silky smooth black bean soup, but I understand that is not for everyone, which is why I emphasize that it's entirely whatever your personal preference is. I know for some people, they just don't like soups that are too smooth, like soups that don't have pieces that they can chew. And then I know some people also just find this really visually unappealing, and that's okay. For me, it makes me think of brownie batter. Obviously, it's not gonna taste like brownie batter, but like visually for me, it looks like brownie batter, or it just makes me think of like a silky smooth refried bean. But anyway, this is ready to get served up. Got a couple ladlefuls of my soup. It is steaming hot. Sprinkle a little cheese over top that, so since it's nice and hot, it'll melt really quickly. And then there is one of my squares cornbread. Other toppings that would be really amazing are avocado, the tortilla strips, you know, like the crunchy tortilla strips that they make. A little bit of chunky salsa right on top, sour cream. Like, this is a soup that is ready to accept some toppings. There are all kinds of toppings that would taste absolutely delicious on here. Also gonna get a little bit of this roasted garlic Texas Pete that I got from Dollar Tree. They sell this for like $2 at my regular grocery store, so I was excited to see it being sold at the Dollar Tree for only $1.25. Yeah, that is so good. I think sour cream would be the thing I'm most craving on top of it. It reminds me of like the super savory version of a really silky tomato soup. Like, it's kind of got that same texture and mouthfeel, but instead of the bright sweetness of a tomato soup, it's this like savoriness that's really nice. Let me get a bite of my cornbread here, soaking up the soup. That is really good. It looked like it wanted to fall apart a little bit. That was because the soup was weighing it down. It's got a little bit less structure than a cornbread made with egg, but it does hold together, and it's very moist and very delicious. Tastes really great dipped in the soup as well as on its own. I'm very happy with this. Just in case you thought my bowl looked kind of unappetizing last night, I just wanted to show you how I ate the leftovers here with some rice that we made and a little bit of sour cream added to it. This is so good. That black bean soup turned out so delicious. Like I said, I'm a fan of just like blending it into that silky, smooth, just really delicious and appealing for me texture. But like I said, I get that's not for everyone. Are you a blended soup person, or are you more of a, you like solid things floating around in your soup kind of person? Either way, if it's a soup, I love it. That concludes my Dollar Tree soup season week. I know that some of y'all's favorite content is the Dollar Tree content, whereas I know others of y'all prefer my more general, low-cost grocery content and cooking content. If you're in that second group, I've got lots of stuff you'll be excited about coming in January. And whichever of my content you like the best, I appreciate you for hanging out with me while I make some delicious food. I hope y'all are having a wonderful holiday season, and if I don't get a new video out before then, have a wonderful new year. I will see you again soon.